But first, the tempting of AOC. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, shortly after she stunned House Democrats by beating longtime incumbent Queens Congressman Joe Crowley 2 years ago, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was being written off by many Republicans as just a flash in the pan. Just a far-left progressive who caught an old establishment Democrat off guard. But I saw things differently. I think it's a mistake for conservatives not to take her seriously, to brush her off as kind of a flash in the pan or an upstart. She's as close to a thought leader that the Democratic Party has today, and she has a massive social media following. She's both charismatic and she's committed to transforming both our economic system and our culture. And while her candidate, Bernie Sanders, didn't win the 2020 nomination, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has had enormous influence on her party. As a freshman Democrat, her coalition helped pull Joe Biden and her colleagues to the left on key issues, such as the Green New Deal, health care, and impeachment. And Democrats will do almost anything, albeit grudgingly, to avoid being primaried by her, one of her choices. She's presented herself as a strong voice for working-class Americans and a strong critic of multinational corporations.
I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working retail, folding clothes for other people to buy. There is nothing wrong with being a working person in the United States of America, and there is everything dignified about it.
The Democratic Party is supposed to be the champion of the working class.
I agree. But with Joe Biden waiting in the wings, poised to announce major changes to U.S. trade and foreign policy, AOC faces some difficult choices. How can she, who's always claimed to be a crusader for the working class, you just heard it, support the policies favored by big corporate interests, Wall Street, the billionaires of Silicon Valley?
We cannot go back to a world where the rich are put first and working people are put last in Washington day in and day out.
Well, given what Biden's team is already telling us, that's exactly where we're going. I know what many of you were thinking, though. This is all, come on, Laura, this is just all a pipe dream. But I'm not sure. AOC has already shown a willingness on some issues to work with conservatives. She and Ted Cruz signed a letter. They kind of snipe on Twitter sometimes, but they signed a letter criticizing Apple for removing a pro-Hong Kong app, also slammed the NBA for putting its profits from China over free speech rights. They also want to work together to rein in lobbyists. But look who's on Biden's transition team. According to the Wall Street Journal, at least 40 people serving on President-elect Joe Biden's transition team are or were once registered lobbyists. Now, the establishment usually wins because the establishment has enough money to buy off candidates with fat donations and instant celebrity status. Now, remember, Donald Trump didn't get the flattering magazine covers, and neither did the First Lady, despite her grace and beauty, because neither agreed to play ball. Most people aren't strong enough to resist the temptation. But this is an old tactic by the elites. Remember back in 1998, Hillary got glamour shots in Vogue. Then Huma Abedin, remember her? She was in Vogue in 2007. And of course, Susan Rice got her shot in 2013. It's always the same. Play ball on the economic issues, don't interfere with globalization, or maybe even help out with outsourcing, and we'll make you a star. We'll give you the cultural power to beat up on conservatives, but when it comes to money and foreign policy, we expect you to go along with the global elites. So Hillary and Huma and Susan, they all thought probably they were going to help the working people too. But in the end, the rich got richer and China got stronger. And the working people, well, they turned to Donald Trump. So it's going to be interesting to see AOC's next move. In the last few months, the establishment has shown her the carrot, the cover of Vanity Fair, of course, and the stick, leaks about how AOC is hurting the Democrat Party. So if she goes along on the China and trade issue and helps the tech bros get richer, well, she'll have a one-way ticket with the in crowd. And if she leaves politics, they'll make her an instant multimillionaire. But if she stands up to the establishment on China, and if she fights against the TPP, if she tries to end foolish wars, well, then she'll get very different treatment. Well, the choice is hers, and she'll have to make it soon. By working with the populace, she can really help working people. And for many folks, that's even better than being on the cover of Vogue or Vanity Fair. And that's The Angle.
So that was one of the thirstiest things you're ever gonna see from Laura Ingraham or Fox News. Basically a primetime Fox News host devoting a 10-minute segment, and I brought part of that segment to you here, trying to beg AOC into becoming a Republican, or at least aligning herself more frequently with Republicans. The thing is, though, it's utterly disingenuous, and it's so absurd for a variety of reasons. Off the top, Laura Ingraham has often attacked AOC for the very things that she's giving her at least somewhat praise here for. Like, if you look at previous videos that Laura Ingraham has put up, it's either that AOC is already a liberal cultural elite, the kind that she supposedly says AOC needs to distance herself from. She brings up the Vogue photo shoot. Or she'll say that, the Democrats maybe used to have a moderate wing, but that wing has basically been neutralized by radicals like AOC and Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and Bernie Sanders, and that one of the reasons why principled moderates can't consider Joe Biden for president is because people like AOC are secretly running the show. And that is a thread throughout Fox News and right-wing coverage, that it's not good old moderate Joe who's been in the Senate since the early 1970s you're voting for. You're actually voting for AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Bernie Sanders. That's the argument. And now they're trying to suggest that actually the mainstream corporate Democrats, they're not actually the good guys anymore. The good guy is AOC, and it just comes off as utterly disingenuous. And it also has to be said that neither conservatives nor liberals, whether it's in the US or Canada or basically anywhere, really understand how the left operates. We are neither conservatives nor liberals. We're socialists, democratic socialists. Some call themselves social democrats, whatever. Some call themselves, a persuasion further left than that. But we're neither conservatives nor liberals. And so when liberals see us criticize, Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or any other corporate Democrat, they assume that we're actually doing it from the right because they can't conceive of somebody to the left of them. They can't conceive of it. So they assume if you criticize the Democratic Party, you must be a Republican. And likewise here, what, Laura Ingraham is trying to suggest is that because AOC has called out the failures of the Democratic Party, the only logical solution is that she needs to work more with Republicans. But the thing is, while we are neither liberals nor conservatives, at least with politics as it is in the United States, AOC understands that the Republicans are worse on almost every single issue, whether it's social or economic, for the broad and diverse working class. And so when they pull clips of her campaigning with Bernie or doing a speech at a Bernie event calling out the Democratic Party and their failures, saying we can't go back to the pre-Trump era, they're not saying that. She's not saying that to defend Republicans or saying she's going to work with Republicans. She's saying that we need to defeat both Trumpism and Bidenism. We need to defeat the Democratic and Republican establishment. And that includes all of the people that Laura Ingraham is saying AOC can work with. Look, there are issues where you can work with Republicans. There are. There are issues. Bernie Sanders has often noted that he has worked with people like Mike Lee, a very conservative senator, on things like reducing the power of the president to unilaterally launch conflicts all over the world. Basically trying to take that power back and put it where it belongs, which is within Congress. That whether it's Trump or any other president, they shouldn't have the power to basically go to war without congressional approval, which is how it should operate by virtue of the Constitution. And so that was a bipartisan effort, and those can exist. And Ingram can note that there are isolated issues where AOC might find common ground with Ted Cruz. But the thing is, this idea that the Republican Party is the party of the working class is BS. They support right-to-work legislation, which guts unions. They don't support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. They don't support free education for all Americans. They don't support housing controls and public housing and these efforts. They don't support an economic plan that will provide jobs and economic and environmental sustainability for the working class. When Republicans say we're the party of working class people, what they are saying is we are the party of white people who hate other people. Their vision of the working class are white people that don't like black people, don't like Hispanic people, don't like immigrants. That's their vision of the working class. AOC's vision of the working class is all those people who struggle to earn a living trying to fight through systems of injustice. And that includes the white working class, but it also includes the majority disproportionately of working class people, which are women and women of color and people with disabilities and new Americans and all these types. And the Republican idea of the working class systematically excludes those people. It systematically excludes them. When they say liberal elites, what they mean is working class black people. And AOC is not about to stand for that. Let's be clear. AOC understands that the Democratic Party, as it's currently constructed, is a failure. Even if it wins elections, it's still a failure in that it fails to achieve things for the working class. But what needs to be said above all is AOC in no way has any significant common ground with any Republican, because they are fundamentally the enemies of working class people. Whereas most Democrats in the House and Senate hate the working class, I believe that. Most of them do. Every Republican does. So the Democratic Party is mostly bad. The Republican Party is unequivocally bad. And AOC gets that. And one final thing, and this needs to be said, AOC, as a democratic socialist like Bernie, fundamentally believes in democracy. And the Democratic Party is not innocent, especially how they run their primaries. But if you think a principled democratic socialist like AOC or Bernie Sanders is going to work with a party that's basically helping Donald Trump right now, trying to take this election away from the American voters, senators either staying silent or supporting him, you're barking up the wrong tree. Republicans, if anything, have proven themselves to be the enemies of working class people and the enemies of democracy. You're never going to get the left to back you if you're those things.